The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. In The Laws of Human Nature, author Robert Greene lays out 16 laws that will help us understand and predict the behavior of ourselves and others. Typically, we have no idea why anyone, including ourselves, does anything. This is because feelings and thoughts are controlled by different parts of the brain. We can't consciously access the source of an emotion or mood. With the help of the laws, we can dive deeper into the workings of human nature and learn to manage toxic types. The laws will help us identify toxic people so we can stay away from them or fight them. Control our own nature. The laws will help us understand our characters, our repressions, our patterns, and other elements of self that we might want to improve or change. Make us more empathetic. The laws will help us form stronger connections with other people. Make people like us. The laws will help us lower people's resistance, encourage them to think and feel the same way we do, and make us likable. Short-form note: The Laws of Human Nature contains 18 laws. We've rearranged and combined some of the laws for concision and clarity. Here are the laws, organized by categories. Category number 1. People have unrealistic self-images. A self-image is our internal assessment of ourselves. Our assessment is usually a little more flattering than reality, and most of us believe we're autonomous, intelligent, and good. Assessing and validating the self-image is critical to the following 3 laws. Law number 1. People are self-absorbed. Attention is both a fundamental human need and a limited resource, so to get as much as we want, we often turn inward and admire our self-images. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. When it comes to self-absorption, the toxic types are narcissists, who have weak or non-existent self-images and therefore spend their lives seeking attention from others. Here are some examples of traits you can use to identify and then avoid them. They take everything personally, can't listen, and try to control others. 2. Make yourself more empathetic. Like everyone, you're at least a little bit self-absorbed, and the best way to keep your self-absorption from controlling your life is to focus on others instead of yourself. Some ways to do this are learning more about people's backgrounds, assuming the best of them, and trying to feel what they're feeling by recalling similar experiences or copying their body language to trigger the associated emotions. Law number 2. People are grandiose. Grandiosity is our natural tendency to inflate our self-image and assume that we're significantly more skilled than we actually are. We do this by, among other things, assuming that we single-handedly achieved success and that our skills are transferable. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. People with high grandiosity can be dangerous in personal contexts because they demand attention but don't reciprocate, and professional ones. They take on projects they can't handle. Here are some examples of traits you can use to identify and then avoid them. They break rules, can't take criticism, and act invincible like they're fated to succeed. 2. Control your own nature. To keep your own grandiosity under control, try some of these strategies. Acknowledge that when you succeed at something you didn't do it single-handedly, and pay attention to your body signals. When you try to do things that are beyond your limits, you'll get headaches and feel tired, grouchy, and nervous. Law number 3. People can be influenced. We all need our self-image confirmed because we know it's not always objectively accurate. We tend to like and listen to the people who validate us. Use this knowledge to 1. Make people like you. People will drop their defenses and become more open to influence if they feel like you've confirmed their self-image. Here are some ways to validate. Flatter people's insecurities, listen deeply, or ask for their advice, which makes them feel smart. 2. Control your own nature. When it comes to using this law on yourself, the goal isn't to resist influence, it's to open yourself to it. This allows you to be a lifelong learner and re-experience some of your childhood openness. Try some of these example strategies. Focus on only the positives when you encounter new ideas and break your own rules occasionally. Best category example. Law number 1. Explorer Sir Ernest Henry Shackleton used his knowledge of law number 1, people are self-absorbed, to make himself more empathetic. For example, when he and his crew were trapped in Antarctica, he assessed individuals by reading their mood, trying to feel the same way, and predicting what he, and therefore they, might do in the thrall of a particular emotion. For instance, Shackleton knew that Frank Hurley was a snob, so Shackleton shared a tent with him, which made him feel important because he was rooming with the leader. Category number 2. People hide their true selves. All of us keep some of our thoughts and feelings to ourselves because if we didn't, we'd offend everyone and become social outcasts. We'll learn how to figure out what people are hiding in the following laws. Law number 4. People wear masks. We all display a persona or a mask that pumps up our positive qualities and shows ourselves in the best light. However, it's not always easy to hide our true natures. While we have good control of our words, we don't always have good control of our body language and nonverbal cues. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. Some people try to hide their socially inappropriate traits such as aggression, overambition, or arrogance. You can see through them and then avoid them. By noticing their nonverbal cues, for example, a tall posture can indicate a desire to dominate, hypocrisy, or how they blame their actions on circumstance. 2. Make people like you. Design and wear an appealing mask to create favorable impressions of yourself. You can do this by demonstrating universally positive traits, like saintliness, and giving off appropriate nonverbal cues. Stand tall to appear confident. Law number 5. People feel envy but mask it. Everyone masks envy because it's an uncomfortable emotion. To admit that we envy someone, we also have to admit that they're superior to us, and most of us can't take that blow to our self-images. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. Enviers can be very dangerous. They might sabotage your career or relationships to make themselves feel superior to you. Identify and then avoid them by the following. They give backhanded compliments, love to gossip, have conflict in their pasts, and exhibit hot-cold behavior towards you. 2. Control your own nature. Here are some ways to manage your own envy. Remember that desirable-looking circumstances have inherent downsides. Famous people have no privacy. Compare yourself to people who have less, and be grateful for what you have. Law number 6. People are aggressive. Like envy, most people mask aggression because it's not socially acceptable. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. Aggressors can be especially dangerous because they're willing to break rules and cross lines to get what they want. Identify, and then avoid, aggressors by their obsessive tendencies, a large number of enemies, or passive-aggressive behavior such as gaslighting. 2. Control your own nature. The best way to manage your own aggression is to redirect it. Use your aggression to motivate skill development, or transmute it into a more helpful emotion such as boldness. Law number 7. People have both masculine and feminine traits. In addition to emotions, many of us hide traits, especially traits that are associated with the opposite gender. Use this knowledge to 1. Control your own nature. Everyone has both masculine and feminine traits, and when we embrace both, we feel more balanced and whole. To connect with whichever side you repress, avoid projecting onto the people you know of the opposite gender, attributing to them desirable qualities they don't actually possess, and practice doing things in the style opposite of what you'd usually use. For example, if your usual action style is masculine, attack and overcome obstacles alone, try approaching a problem with a feminine style. Step back and analyze all the possibilities, and be open to waiting for a more opportune moment. Best category example. Law number 7. Italian noblewoman Caterina Sforza used her knowledge of law number 7 to be a balanced, effective strategist. For example, when mercenary leader Cesare Borgia attacked her castle, she first tried to avoid a conflict, feminine style, by trying to trap him on her drawbridge by flirting with him. When that didn't work, she turned to the more masculine style of sword fighting. Category number 3. People behave differently in groups. When in groups, we're subject to social force, the energy of collective emotions, and understanding this force is important to the following 3 laws. Law number 8. People's individuality is overpowered by groups. When we're in groups, everyone else's emotions affect us and potentially provoke us into doing things we wouldn't do alone. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. Groups contain hierarchies of individuals and/or factions, and everyone is trying to get closer to the leader. Identify, and then avoid, the dangerous group members by their flattery of the leader, enforcing of the rules, or stirring up of drama. 2. Control your own nature. To maintain your individuality in a group and not be swept along by the collective energy, try some of the following strategies. Physically distance yourself from the group when you feel overwhelmed, determine the source of your emotions, and practice considering ideas that are the opposite of the group's values. Law number 9. People are influenced by their generation. Everyone belongs to at least one group, their generation. Generational values are shaped by world events that took place during the generation's coming-of-age years and the inevitable conflict with other generations. Use this knowledge to 1. Make people like you. If you can show people of your generation that you embody their spirit and share their values, you can gain support for your ideas. You might connect to members of your generation by using childhood callbacks, never criticizing your generation, and using your knowledge of conflict between generations to predict the future. For example, Frenchman Georges Danton saw the public's dissatisfaction with the monarchy and predicted, and helped instigate, revolution. Law number 10. People have conflicted feelings, especially about authority figures. Authority, guidance towards a higher purpose, is a fundamental human need. However, people confuse authority with leadership, holding a position of power, and often feel ambivalent about authority figures. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. Before choosing to follow a leader, assess their authority. If they get followers by using force or don't provide their followers with guidance, avoid them. If you can't find anyone you want to follow, become your own authority by developing purpose. Your general purpose is to contribute to society in some way. To find out what your specific purpose is, identify your natural abilities and interests and use them to do something good. 2. Make people like you. If your purpose is to lead a group, you can develop authority by putting the group's needs above your own, leading by example, planning for the long term, and developing empathy. Best category example. Law number 10. Elizabeth I used her knowledge of law number 10, establishing authority, to make people like her. For example, she worked hard to gain her counselors' respect. She became an expert in England's finances, regularly worked past midnight, and let it be known that she had the country's best interests at heart and aimed to make England prosper. Category number 4. People self-sabotage. We all have some self-sabotaging tendencies, often stemming from traits that were useful in the past but are no longer applicable in modern life. We'll learn how to deal with these tendencies in the following 4 laws. Law number 11. People are irrational. By nature, everyone is ruled by their emotions, not their minds, because feelings used to be a survival mechanism. When we felt fear, we needed to react instinctively to stay alive. Use this knowledge to 1. Control your own nature. To manage your own irrationality, you might identify what triggers strong emotions in you. Be aware that you're not at your most logical in these moments, and give your emotions time to pass before making decisions. Law number 12. People are bad at long-term thinking. We tend to be concerned with the present rather than the future because our brains evolved to look for immediate rather than far-off danger. Use this knowledge to 1. Control your own nature. To avoid short-sightedness, when you encounter a problem or decision, look at it as logically as possible. Try to detach yourself from your emotions, look at the situation from all angles, and consider the impacts of every outcome. Law number 13. People are compulsive according to their character. Our characters are at the core of our being and determine our actions, even when we're not consciously aware of them. While we can shape our characters, we can't change them, and this is why we tend to make the same mistakes over and over again. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. Some people have a weak character, and no matter how many positive traits a person might have, their character will overpower them. This is because people with a weak character can't take criticism, so they can't learn or change. Identify and avoid people with a weak character by looking at how they act in stressful moments and when presented with small inconveniences. Also, look at how they treat their friends and family. If they ever act negatively, you can be sure they'll do it again. 2. Control your own nature. You can't change your character, but you can shape it. Use some of the following strategies. Spend time with people of strong character, create new habits, and become aware of your negative behavior patterns so that when you start to fall into one, you can catch yourself and step out. Law number 14. People have attitudes. Everyone sees a slightly different version of the world, filtered by their perception or attitude. Our moods vary, but in general, we all have an overarching emotion that we filter the world through. This is caused by our brain's inherent and unconscious sensitivity to particular stimuli. For example, if our overall attitude is sadness, when we see sad things, our brain fires strongly, and the strength of the firing makes us pay attention and feel sad. Use this knowledge to 1. Manage toxic types. When you encounter people whose overall emotion is hostility, avoidance, or resentfulness, avoid them. When you encounter people with sad attitudes, don't try to change their attitude, but invite them to do something with you, which will boost their energy. When you encounter those who are anxious, give off calming nonverbal cues, such as keeping still and not fidgeting. 2. Control your own nature. If you see hostility in yourself, try assuming the best of everyone. If you see avoidance, try taking on a small, achievable project. If you see resentfulness, don't bottle it up. If you see depression, take a break or work on a project to increase your energy. If you see anxiety, put yourself in situations you're scared of to show yourself things aren't as bad as you anticipated. Best category example. Law number 11. Pericles was aware that law number 11 made him and everyone else in Athens irrational, so he took steps to mitigate this. For example, when Sparta presented Athens with an ultimatum, if Athens didn't agree to new terms of peace, Sparta would attack. Pericles thought about the situation rationally. If Athens gave in, Sparta would just keep pushing for more and more. But if Athens tried to fight, they would lose because Sparta was more powerful. Pericles' solution was to ignore the ultimatum but make it so inconvenient for Sparta to attack that they would just give up. Pericles and the other Athenian citizens would shelter inside the city's walls when the Spartans arrived instead of engaging with them. Meanwhile, the Athenian navy would raid Spartan coastal towns and keep Athens supplied. The Spartan army, parked outside Athens, would become frustrated and eventually go bankrupt. Category number 5. People want the wrong things. By nature, people are unable to be content with their current situation. Desire motivates us, not possession. We'll learn how to manage this in the next 2 laws. Law number 15. People want what they don't have. As soon as we get something we want something else, a phenomenon that's known as the grass is always greener syndrome. And even though getting what we want is never satisfying, we still pursue our next want, hoping that one will make us happy. Use this knowledge to 1. Make people like you. If you can put yourself or your work just slightly out of reach, people will be attracted to you because they can't have you. Do this by being strategically absent or associating yourself with something transgressive. People particularly want what's forbidden because they can't have it. 2. Control your own nature. To avoid getting caught up in an endless search, reflect on what you sincerely want and like, use your feelings of longing to motivate yourself, and channel the law into coveting deeper versions of what you already have. For example, kindle the desire to know more about the people already in your life. Law number 16. People want to avoid thinking about death. Being aware of death makes us sad, so we try not to think about it. However, when we avoid thinking about death or desensitize ourselves, our anxiety about it strengthens, and to avoid this anxiety, we try to make our life more controllable by doing less, dulling our psyche with an addiction, avoiding new things so we can't fail at them, and avoiding spending time with people because they're unpredictable. All these responses actually make our life more death-like, isolated and unchanging. Use this knowledge to 1. Control your own nature. You'll feel more alive if you think about death, and you can do this by making death more concrete. For example, imagine your own death. Acknowledging that time is limited and embracing the sublime. For example, contemplate the vastness of the universe. Best category example. Law number 15. Coco Chanel used law number 15 to make her products elusive and therefore desirable. For example, she created an air of mystery around one of her perfumes by making it smell like a bouquet rather than a single flower so no one could tell exactly what it smelled like. She sprayed it in her store but pretended she didn't know what it was when shoppers asked. She also slipped unlabeled bottles into her most prominent clients' bags.